السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ثم أما بعد, we will continue our class in the explanation of the book العقيدة الواسطية by Shaykh al-Islam Ahmad bin Abdul Halim ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani rahimahullah. We reach where the author, or we'll continue with a statement of the author rahimahullah: وَمِنَ الْإِيمَانِ بِاللَّهِ الْإِيمَانُ بِمَا وَصَفَ بِهِ نَفْسَهُ فِي كِتَابِهِ وما وصفه به رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم من غير تحريف ولا تعطيل. So the author rahimahullah, he said, and from believing in Allah is to believe in that which he described himself with in his book, and with that which his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam described him with, without tahrif, which is alteration. And it comes, and we will talk about the word itself and its meaning, ولا تعطيل, nor negation, ومن غير تكييف ولا تمثيل. So the author rahimahullah, he said, from believing in Allah, as part of believing in Allah is to believe in that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described himself with in his book, and what his messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam described him with, without tahrif, without alteration. So tahrif, alteration, is either in the text itself or in the meanings. And most of the alterations that happen in regards to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and likewise in general the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the words of the messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, are alterations of explaining away. They are in the meanings, not in the text itself. And most of the time, as Shaykh al-Allama Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he said that most of the time when alteration happens in regards to the text itself, not its meanings, then it is out of ignorance. It is usually out of ignorance, not intentional. As for the alteration by way of meanings, meaning that explaining away, to explain away and to change and alter the meanings of the statements of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the statement of his messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then this is something that has happened and continues to happen by many of the people, and we seek refuge in Allah from their way. And those people, when they explain away the verses of the Quran and the ahadith of the messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they usually call it ta'wil. However, the statements of the author rahimahullah calling it tahrif, alteration, and we'll come to the word ta'wil and what it means, but calling it tahrif, alteration, is the more correct word for three reasons. There are three reasons why it is more correct and more proper to call it tahrif, alteration, than calling it ta'wil. And that is because first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called it in the Quran tahrif. And it is always better to use the words of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ عَنْ مَوَاضِعِهِ, that they alter and explain away the words from their meanings. The second reason is that it actually explains more what they are doing, meaning those who change and explain away the meanings of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll mention an example of that, barakallahu fikum, just to make things more clear. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arshi istawa, the most merciful rose on the throne. So some people, they explain it away and they say istawa, it means istawla, that he took over. That's what it means. And likewise they explain away, for example, the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, بَلْ يَدَاهُ مَبْسُوطَتَانِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said in the meaning of the ayah, rather his two hands, meaning the two hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are extended and are spread out, and he gives to whomsoever he wills. And so they explain it away and they say this means his generosity rather than his hands, as to negate the hands from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what they do is they explain it away. They explain away the meanings of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in reality, this is an alteration and an explaining away rather than ta'wil, and we will come to what ta'wil is. So saying that this is an alteration of the meanings of the verses is more truth. It is more correct. It is what, in reality, that's what it is. It is explaining away, and it is altering the meanings of the verses and the ahadith. And likewise, the third reason is that it detracts people away from this way and from taking their creed, the creed of those who do explain away the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It detracts the people and pushes them away from this falsehood by saying that this is an explaining away and this is an alteration of the meanings of the ayah. So the people are aware of it, so they would stay away from it by knowing that this is not proper, and that one would be explaining away those ahadith and those ayat. There's actually a fourth reason, is that, and it is the fact, and now this takes us to the topic of ta'wil. So usually those who do explain away the ayat and the ahadith, they call it ta'wil. They say we don't explain away, what we do is ta'wil. This is what they claim. And the reason, or another reason why the use of the word explain away is more correct, and that's what should be used. It is because not every ta'wil is falsehood. Not every ta'wil is wrong. Because the word ta'wil comes in three different meanings. The word ta'wil comes in three different meanings. The first one is to explain in general. To have tafsir, to have understanding, and to explain something, such as that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he supplicated by saying to Ibn Abbas, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, by saying Allahumma faqihhu fi din, oh Allah, give him understanding of the religion, wa'allimhu at-ta'wil, and teach him the ta'wil, meaning the tafsir, being able to explain the Quran, not explain away, of course, but rather to explain it properly. So one meaning of the word ta'wil is tafsir, is to explain something. And from this we find that many of the people of knowledge, for example, when they write books on tafsir, they say the ta'wil of this statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is such and such, and they explain it. They explain it properly and correctly. However, they use the word ta'wil because it means, one of its meanings is to explain in general. The second meaning of the word ta'wil is the matter coming true. The matter coming true. For example, in regards to commands, the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their ta'wil, they are coming true by way of actually acting upon them, by obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His commands and His prohibitions, staying away from the prohibitions and doing that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands with. So this is the ta'wil of it. An example of that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the surah إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفر إنه كان توابا. So glorify your Lord with His praises and seek His forgiveness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down this ayah, or the surah, upon the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, commanding him that if the victory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows him to conquer Mecca and to open Mecca, to glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and glorify His praises and to seek His forgiveness. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after that, he used to say in his ruku' and in his sujood, when praying, in his prostration, and when he bows down, that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say Subhanaka Allahumma Rabbana wa bihamdik Allahumma ighfirli. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said يتأول القرآن, that he was acting upon the Quran and bringing the reality of the command, meaning fulfilling the command. So the word ta'wil, يتأول القرآن. This is what Aisha radiallahu anha said, meaning that the word ta'wil came in the meaning of fulfilling the command. And in regards to information, or to news, or to things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that will happen, then their ta'wil is them coming true, is for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us will happen to happen. An example of that is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala هل ينظرون إلا تأويله, meaning do they wait to other than it coming in reality and happening. يوم يأتي تأويله. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it as that do they await other than this happening? So the word ta'wil here, it came in the meaning of something happening as one was told. Another example of that is Yusuf alayhi salam. He said, هذا تأويل رؤياي من قبل قد جعلها ربي حقا. When his brothers and his parents, they came and his brothers prostrated to him, a way of honoring and greeting, not in a way of a worship. And this used to be permissible for those who were before us, and of course it became impermissible for us, meaning no one prostrates to another creation, not even in the form of greeting or honoring. And however, this is what he had seen in his dream, alayhi salam, Yusuf. Of course, the story is long. However, after it happened and it came true, he said, هذا تأويل رؤياي من قبل. This is the reality of my dream. It came true. So those are three meanings of the word ta'wil. And then there's the third meaning, which is to explain something or to alter the meaning or to explain the meaning of something with other than that which is apparent from it. To explain the meaning of something with other than that which is apparent from it. And if there is an evidence of this explaining away, then it is correct and it is praiseworthy. If there is no evidence of it, then it is incorrect and it is blameworthy. An example of it being correct is, for example, the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أتى أمر الله. The command of Allah has come. And this means the Amrullah huna, Amrullah in this ayah, the meaning is the day of judgment. It has come. Did it come in the past? No. It did not come in the past. How do we know? Because of the continuation of the ayah. فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُوهُ. So do not hasten it. Meaning it is very close to coming. This is the meaning, that it is very close to coming, so it came in the past tense. أَتَى أَمْرُ اللَّهِ. The command of Allah has come. Similar to that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ. And if you recite the Quran, then seek refuge in Allah. Does that mean after one recites the Quran, he seeks refuge in Allah? No. Before reciting the Quran. طيب, but the ayah, it says, فَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ. If you have recited the Quran in past tense, we say the Sunnah explains it. The Messenger ﷺ used to seek refuge in Allah before reciting the Quran. And also the Messenger ﷺ, he said, that he used to say before entering the text itself, it says when he enters, or when he entered into the bathroom, or when he goes to answer the call of nature, he says, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith. That he seeks refuge in Allah when he enters into or when he goes to the place of answering the call of nature. However, this of course again is understood that it is before he enters into the place, because the place of answering the call of nature, it is a place in which the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should not be mentioned. And the part of this dua is Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith. Allahumma, there is the mentioning of the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it means before entering. طيب. So we're explaining away. It is an explaining of the meaning with other one than what is apparent from it. However, it is proper because there is an evidence of it. There is an evidence. Ata amrullah, the command of Allah has come. The day of judgment has come. Did it really come? Not yet. However, because it is very close, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it as if it is in past tense. Similar to that, our Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Maysan, hafidhahullah, he mentioned the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that means, and test the orphans until if you see that they have reached the age of puberty and they became wise and are able to know how to spend, then give them their wealth. طيب, they are called orphans. However, do you give the orphan his wealth before or after reaching puberty? It is after reaching puberty, after hitting puberty. But after reaching puberty, as the Messenger ﷺ, he said that there is no one is not called, or one is not called an orphan after hitting puberty, after reaching the age of puberty. He no longer is called an orphan. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called him an orphan. It is because of how close he was to being an orphan that he is called an orphan. However, again, we're explaining the meaning with other than what is apparent from it, based upon an evidence. So if one explains the meaning with other than what is apparent based upon an evidence, there is no harm. The evidence, of course, being from the Quran and the Sunnah. There is no harm, and it is proper. And this is a correct use of ta'wil, meaning this is ta'wil that is not blameworthy, and rather this is praiseworthy. Whereas there is ta'wil that is blameworthy, and it is to explain away the meaning of something without an evidence, such as what we mentioned. Those who say that the hands of Allah, it means His power, or it means His generosity, or other than that. We say, what is the evidence of that? And they try to explain that if we affirm hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be like His creation. We say, no, this is wrong. We affirm to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that which He affirmed to Himself without setting a likeness. And rather we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hands that befit Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like we have hands that befit us, just like the animals have hands that befit them, the elephant has a hand, and the ant has hands, and everyone has hands that befit them. And to Allah is the best of examples. If we see this great differing between the hands of the ants and the people and the elephants, and other than that, and we find there's this huge difference between them, and this is in regards to the creation. How about the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. And to Allah is the best of examples. We say, then explaining away the meaning because of this claim of resemblance and likeness, we say this is our own explaining away. This is not based on an evidence from the Quran or the Sunnah. So the author rahimahullah said, we affirm to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that which He affirmed to Himself, and that which His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam affirmed to Him, min ghayri tahrif. We spoke about tahrif, altering and explaining away and changing the meanings. قال ولا تعطيل, and without negating. طيب, what is negating? It is to remove the meaning, or to remove the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to negate the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wal-'iyadu billah. To claim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have those attributes. And what is the difference then? What is the difference between at-tahrif wa at-ta'til, between altering and negating? We say the difference is that altering is in regards to the text itself. In regards to the text itself. And at-ta'til, negating, is in regards to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala themselves. So at-tahrif, altering, is altering the texts or the meanings of the text. At-ta'til, negating, is specific to the attribute, not to the text. Therefore, every person who alters the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who alters the texts, those who alter the texts, they negate the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the examples that we mentioned, they alter the meanings of the texts, and by way of that they negate the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, not everyone who negates the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alters the meanings of the texts. For example, there is a group that is called Al-Mufawwidah. This group, Al-Mufawwidah, they negate the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without altering the meanings of the text. And rather, what they say is, for example, they say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa, the most merciful rose on the throne. And they say we affirm that, however, we don't know what does rise mean. We affirm it without trying to understand what it means. And rather, we don't know the meanings. Another example, they say, بَلْ يَدَاهُمَا بِسُوطَتَانِ. They say we don't know what hands mean. His two hands are spread out in giving and in generosity. His two hands are spread out. Or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam with his two hands. They say we don't know what hands mean. in this case. And this is their claim. And this way, as Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentioned, is the worst of ways. It is the worst of ways. And that is because, first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He told us everything in the Quran that we need in regards to our religion, especially in regards to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the names and the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most of the Quran, if you look at it, you find names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us of that. And He made the Quran clear Arabic speech. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that the Quran is a clear Arabic speech. So by way of them saying that this is not clear speech, they are belying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They belie Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by them saying that it is not clear speech. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the Quran that it is clear speech. In addition, by way of their claim, they describe the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam as someone who is ignorant. Because he recites the verses of the Quran and he does not know the meanings of what he is reciting. So they claim that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is ignorant. And likewise the Salaf in general, they consider them to be ignorant. In addition to that, they give strength to those who negate to those who alter and change the meanings of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the meanings of the verses and the ahadith regarding the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They give them strength. How is that? It is because they, meaning those who negate, those al-mufawwida, those who say we don't know the meanings of the ayat and the ahadith, we don't know the meanings of the words, the clear words that are very clear and very obvious, they say we don't know their meanings. They describe themselves and they describe their way with ignorance. Whereas the other group, those who explain away the meanings, they are described to have knowledge in this case in comparison to their ignorance. Why? Because they affirm something. It is a wrong affirmation. They affirm not what is meant by the ayah. However, they affirm something. Whereas the other group, they say we don't know what that means. We don't know what that means. We don't know the entire Quran and the Sunnah. They say we don't know what that means. Whereas the other group, those who explain away, they say we know what that means. They give them strength. They make them as if they are correct. So in general, both ways are incorrect. And based upon that, and many people who have this tafweed, those who say that that the meaning of such and such is not known, many of them, they have this principle that says that the way of the Salaf, the way of the predecessors, they claim that this is the way of the Salaf, claiming that we don't know the meanings. And this is a lie. We will come to say what the Salaf said in regards to this. However, they claim that this is the way of the Salaf, to say that we don't know the meanings. So, and they say the way of the Salaf, the predecessors, is safer, meaning to say we don't know the meanings. They say this is safer than going and explaining away. And they say the way of the Khalaf, the way of the people of falsehood, the way of the people of innovation, the way of those who explain away the meanings of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they say it has more wisdom and more knowledge. And this is a lie. And what is correct is the way of the Salaf, in the correct way, that we affirm to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that which He affirmed to Himself, in a way that befits Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we free Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from likenesses, as we will come to explain from the words of the author rahimahullah bi'idhnillahi ta'ala in future classes. Imam Malik rahimahullah, he was asked about rising on the throne. Allah Ar-Rahman Ar-Arsh istawa. He was asked what does istawa, or how did he rise on the throne? And he rahimahullah, he said al-istiwa'u ma'loom, rising is known, wal-kayfu majhul. This is what the Salaf said is unknown. How did he rise? We don't know. It is unknown. Affirming is known, and there is a how, but we don't know how. We don't know it. We don't know how are the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we affirm the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He affirmed to Himself, but we say we don't know how are those attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالْإِيمَانُ بِهِ وَاجِبٌ, and believing in it is an obligation. وَالسُّؤَالُ عَنْهُ بِدْعَةٌ, meaning asking about how are the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an innovation. This is the way of the Salaf. To affirm the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to affirm them to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that befits Him. And at the same time, we say we don't know how are the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we will conclude with this, بإذن الله تعالى. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.